So this is something I think we have to talk about. What we're seeing right now is literally a turning point in America. And after the recent shooting of Charlie Kirk, this is something that we have to talk about because the response from the left and what we're seeing develop right now in our country is very concerning, and how they've reacted and how they're celebrating this horrible atrocity and now scrambling to rewrite the narrative at this moment says a lot about where we're currently heading in this country. So this is something I wanted to talk about. Now in this video, we're not going to be having any sponsors or anything like that. I don't think that that's appropriate for this type of video, but if you guys want to support me, you can support me simply by subscribing to the channel and sharing this video around so more people get this message, and so we can have this conversation about this critical turning point in our nation and what's currently now developing on the left and why it's so concerning. Now, I wanted to give you guys kind of a breakdown of, what did I think about this incident? What happened originally when I heard about this news? How did it impact me? Now, I think I was actually filming a video at the time. I had my phone, on Do Not Disturb. I got out, started editing the video, and then I was getting blown up by a lot of friends, other content creators, in the space, and they were saying, hey, did you see that Charlie got shot? I go over on X, and then, we all saw the videos and we all saw what happened. And, it hit me. It was one of those things where I don't think I ever really thought that something like that would happen. It was something that we never thought would go that far and something like this would happen. And, it kind of put us all in shock. It put me in shock for multiple days. Me and my family, we talked about it a lot. Me and my friends and other content creators, we talked about it a lot. And it's just something that, again, is shocking. And I think we're still, processing, and we're thinking about where do we really go? We're seeing a lot of discussions online about what this means for the country going forward. So I kind of want to start with this. We on the right believe in freedom of speech, but the left, in my opinion, does not. They don't believe in the right of free speech. They believe in their fundamental right to shut down counter speech without consequences. And this is now escalated to the point where someone murdered Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old man, and they murdered him in front of his wife and children. And they did it in the most shocking, invisible way that they could, so that they could get a reaction and silence his voice. And this was all done simply because they do not agree with Charlie's ideas and his positions. They don't agree with his freedom of speech. They don't agree with debating him. And their response, and the response that we've seen, from the left, is open celebration of this atrocity. These people showed, essentially their true colors, and they showed their actual morals. And now they're essentially acting shocked because they're facing backlash and consequences. We've now seen thousands of people actually get fired from their jobs because of this open celebration of what happened to Charlie. And then, in response to them being fired, these people have the audacity to cry about the consequences that they're now facing. So I wanted to talk about this because, also online from these individuals who are getting fired, you're seeing a lot of, the First Amendment, don't cancel me over exercising my First Amendment rights. I have the right to celebrate this. And yes, you have a First Amendment right, but the First Amendment does not protect you from consequences. It does not shield you from losing your job, from being fired, or from people deciding that they do not want to associate with you anymore, that they don't want you in civilized society, and they don't want to be your friend, or they don't want to employ you, or they don't want to be around you. Your actions have consequences. So now I want to kind of move and talk about the shooter and the narrative games that have been playing out on the left and playing out online. And this is something, in my opinion, which is most concerning and something that I'm looking at right now. And I don't really know where we go from here and, how do we move forward as a country because of this narrative gamemanship that is now developing on the left. Almost immediately, the left tried to spin this into something that, happened from a radical right-wing extremist. We saw them try to say he was associated with Nick Fuentes and, speakers like that. We saw the same playbook that they always do, quick accusations against the right, immediate blame on the, to the right, and attempts to try to tie this with the conservative. And also immediately we saw the left pushing for gun control and that type of narrative, calling for bans on so-called assault weapons. And that was all before any information even had actually developed about the shooter or the firearm that was used. And then suddenly, when we got information on the rifle and discovered that no, it wasn't something like an AR-15, suddenly the left, kind of changed their position, moved their narrative, but they never retracted those statements or admitted that they were wrong. Instead, what we saw them do is kind of double down, shift the narrative, and continue that gamemanship that they do about narratives. So I think it's important that we talk about the information that we actually have. Everything coming out so far shows that there is a clear left-leaning tie from this individual, not someone connected to the right. I know they were trying to push him to say that he was a groyper and following Nick Fuentes, but all of that has been debunked. And this really is all part of a broader trend from the left. When the facts don't fit what they want, they essentially change the narrative, manufacture narratives, or just manufacture facts. And it shows, how desperate they actually are to control public perception and ignore the real world implications of their movement. We've seen them circulate fake pictures of the shooter with a Trump shirt, and they claim that he is a Republican because his family, was Republican and he grew up in a Republican family. Well, in fact, what we've seen now is that picture was completely fake. That picture was circulating around and it got millions of views, but it was completely fake. And reports from the family members show that this individual, actually was left-leaning. The family has acknowledged that his ideas did not align with the family's ideas, that he was potentially radicalized when he went to school. And now we have information that his roommate was actually his partner, his boyfriend, and that his, partner was a transgender individual. So none of that narrative aligns with what the left wants, so they continue to spin things and manufacture facts. Now, one thing that I want to talk about, which I was absolutely shocked to see, is people on the left using Charlie Kirk's comments about the Second Amendment as some sort of validation for him being shot. And again, that is disgusting. And I'm surprised that you have people, I guess I'm not really surprised, but you have people on the left that are trying to use those quotes, kind of taken out of context to validate what happened. So let's be very clear. The disagreement over the Second Amendment or over political issues in general does not justify violence. When Charlie Kirk spoke about the right to keep and bear arms, it was in the context of defending liberty, something that's foundational to the Constitution and the Second Amendment. To misrepresent that and to argue that it's somehow warranted an attempt on his life, and essentially people are claiming, he got what he wanted about his Second Amendment, quotes, that's beyond dishonest, and it's actually very dangerous, and they continue to push this dangerous narrative, which again, I don't know how we come back from this. This entire moment, the shooting, the reaction from the left, and all the fallout is a reminder of where we currently stand in this nation. We are very divided, and we're kind of at a turning point. The left can no longer hide behind all these fake platitudes about tolerance while cheering on this violence against Charlie. My hope was that many on the left would recognize, this and decide to push out those bad actors on the left and in the Democratic Party. But unfortunately, even some of the leaders are not recognizing this. What we saw recently, when there was a moment of silence in the House for Charlie Kirk, you even had representatives in the House who were pushing back against the moment of silence and a moment of, prayer for Charlie, and they were shouting in the House. You also had, some representatives and some senators pushing back against the fact that Charlie Kirk was flown on Air Force One and JD Vance went out there and, he's getting this additional attention from the government and from his friends in the administration like Trump, Vance. So myself, like many, were wondering, where does this leave us? Candidly, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but right now I think so much is up in the air. We still have a lot of information that we need to get out about this, individual. We still have a lot of information, a lot of questions. But I think, many of us, especially on the right, people like me who, talk about the Second Amendment, talk about politics and things like that, we are seeing this as pretty much a historical event, and it could be a turning point for America. We're at the point where people on the right are essentially done with the left's games and their violence. But I will say it is now on all of us to take up the cause of Charlie Kirk, to refuse to let the left silence us and engage in these type of actions against us. It's on all of us to pick up the cause of Charlie Kirk. Again, I want to push you guys to Turning Point USA. I know they've exploded over the last, few days in response to what happened to Charlie, and there's a lot of amazing things that are happening, and I would push you guys to go join Turning Point USA. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to find a local chapter in my area to help them however I can. I will say for myself, and I know for many of us, we have peace in knowing that regardless of what happens, God is in control, and we know that Charlie is now with Christ. It's unfortunately that, his life was ended so soon and he was taken from his wife and his kids, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And again, I don't know how people on the left could celebrate something like that. You mean you had a young dad, regardless if you did not agree with his politics or what he talked about, but to celebrate a young dad getting taken from his wife and his kids, and he had a 1-year-old kid and a 3-year-old kid. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. As a new dad, seeing that, it impacted me. And I think for a lot of us, it impacted us. And we spend some time additionally, enjoying time with our family, spending time with our family. And I think that's what we all should do. I know This last Sunday, there were a lot of people who went to church probably for the first time or for the first time in many years, which is amazing to see. And so there are some good things coming out of this horrible event. And I hope, ultimately more good things come out of this. And my hope is that the left finally decides to acknowledge what is going on within their party, what is going on with their ideology, and how this is leading to dangerous consequences and could be a really horrible turning point for our country. Now, the last thing that I want to leave with you guys is something that has been in my head over the last few days. It's actually one of my favorite Bible verses, and it's Micah 7, verses 7 through 8. And it states, "But as for me, I watch and hope for the Lord. I wait for God, my Savior. My God will hear me. Do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. Because I have sinned against him, I will bear the Lord's wrath until he pleads my case and upholds my cause. He will bring me out into the light. I will see his righteousness. Then my enemy will see it and will be covered with shame. She who said to me, 'Where is the Lord your God?' My eyes will see her downfall, and even now she will be trampled underfoot like mire in the streets." So again, thank you guys for watching this video. If you found value in this video, if you support, what we're talking about here on this channel, and you support, what we're talking about in regards to this horrible incident, please share this video around, the video, subscribe to the channel. But as always, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.